So thanks. I really appreciate you guys being here. I have a confession. This is my first talk that I'm giving on product since I started and transitioned into product. So I have a really fresh just perspective about the entire thing. So I have a few slides, but I really want to leave time for question and answers. Okay. So I'm going to cover, I'm a learning background, so I just have to have an agenda. I'm going to go a little bit into my background, my transition, and then have some really simple and easy tips and tricks for you guys to take away if you're looking to move into product. And then, as I said, Q&A. So I'm Roberta. I have been working in SaaS for over 7 years in Boston. I have a learning experience design background and product. So I'm eclectic, really, to say the least. I've worked on e-learning, online learning, instructor-led training. I moved into UX over the past year, so I've done in-product learning experiences. But this is my first official product manager role. I've been doing it in some capacity for the past 2 years. I am also a grad student at Boise State University. I just started my last semester yesterday, so I'm really excited to graduate. I also got 30 under 30 at Learning 2018 last year. So learning is really just my passion. It's what I love doing, and product manager at Pluralsight. I also love just sharing my personal philosophy with people. So I believe that learning is the basis for growth and change. I approach every experience and person I encounter with fresh eyes because I know that they have something to teach me. So that's really something that I just try to embody when I meet new people, every interaction that I have. And I'll link back to this as well throughout the presentation. So I mentioned it a little bit, but PMs really have diverse backgrounds. The point that I really want to drive home is that PM product is not one size fits all. Everyone is really eclectic. There is no school until now that we can go to. We're all coming with these different experiences, and that's really something that we should be using to our benefit in our day-to-day role. And so I hope that in your transition and making it into product that you really learn to embrace that. So my transition. So I started at Pluralsight at the end of September. And Pluralsight has this awesome onboarding. They fly everyone out to Utah. This was my first day. So I did not go to Utah. A week before I was supposed to start, I was actually supposed to meet my team in the Boston office. And I was running down, trying to catch commuter rail down my stairs, and I broke my ankle. And I lifted up my ankle, and it was facing the complete other direction. So my transition to product was very difficult, to say the least. So I have hope and faith that you guys will definitely have it easier than I did. But yeah, so I'll come back to this in a little bit, but that's my cat, Gracie. So for me, taking the leap was a really conscious decision. It's something I'm I'm analytical at heart. I overanalyzed it, thought about it for at least 9 months until I finally decided to make the leap. I did a lot of research when I decided to do it. I read books. I had been in the industry in SaaS for over 7 years, so I was meeting with people, talking to my friends that were product managers, talking to UX designers, and just really trying to get my name out there and talk to people. And then I started last year blogging a lot too. So I was on Twitter, I was posting stuff. So it was a combination of all these different things. And then I finally was just screw it, I can't think about this anymore. I need to just leap in and do it. So tips. So really, the heart of product is solving problems. It really is. You're meeting with customers and really trying to understand, doing user research and identifying what's the problem that you're trying to solve for them. So my biggest tip and recommendation for anyone that's trying to make the transition is to PM your job search. That's what I ended up doing, and so the tips that I provide will kind of align with that. But it's essentially a problem you're trying to solve, right? So you want to become a product manager, how are you going to solve that problem, right? So self-tip 1, conduct your user research. That's the first thing you usually want to do in product, is do your user research. And in this case, you are the user. You need to do the research and the self-reflection to kind of do that. So these are questions that I kind of asked myself and worked through personally over that time when I was deciding to make the transition. So like, think to yourself, why am I trying to make the change? What type of environment do I even want to be in? And that was really important for me personally. I was in like a small, probably 100 people at the time. And now I'm at Pluralsight and there's over 1,000 people, to say the least, so it was a big transition. Also, I never thought about it before I was kind of forced into doing remote work as a PM, that there is remote product management too, that's out there. Also, what type of product do you want to work on? That's going to be based on your background and your experiences. Like I said, learning is my passion, and it's what I've been doing for so long. So my dream job was working on a learning product. So this was actually the first product role I applied to, and I got it. So also think about what unique perspective are you going to bring to the product role, right? I meet people every single day, and I'm like, they have these books about interview questions, about like questions to answer when you want to be a product manager. What are you going to be asked in the interview? And they're like, how would you define product management? And everyone gives the same answer about like, oh, it's the intersection between UX and business and technology. That's great, that's right, that's technically right, but why do you want to be a product manager? Where do you fit within that ecosystem of everything and all the moving pieces? Also, what are you going to have to work on to get there? The company that I was at before Pluralsight was called the Predictive Index. And so it is an assessment company. They do behavioral and cognitive assessments. So I worked there for 4 years, and it was very focused on behavioral assessments. So I knew, like, it's very similar to Myers-Briggs. So I knew, like, my strengths, my weaknesses. I knew that I was an introvert and what challenges I was going to have to overcome. I know that everyone doesn't have the benefit of like having those assessments. So definitely do that personal work and think about like, what are my strengths? What am I going to have to work on? Tip 2, connect with others. At the heart of product, it's really communicating. I get home at the end of the day and I'm just like with my cat and I'm like, oh, I'm so tired. I talked all day long. And it's really true. So you got to be great at communication, written, verbal, everything you can think of. So one thing that I really recommend is connecting with others. That was a huge part of my search personally. Everyone from PMs, like UX designers, engineers, CSMs, sales. And so do that before your search. And then once you get within an organization as well, like you get hired as a PM, that's the first thing you're going to want to do too, is get to know all of those people in the role. I was remote for probably a month and a half, 2 months. And so I did, within the first month, I had to do virtual Zoom meetings and stuff like that. I did 30 within a month, just with everyone across the entire company, because I knew that I needed to form those relationships with people. Also learn about their journeys, different type of environments that they worked in. Like I said, everyone has unique backgrounds, so you might talk to one PM who's worked in like an enterprise environment, one who's at a startup, and they have really different perspectives, so be open to that. My third tip, share your unique voice. I'm all about that. My background before doing learning experience was in photography and printing and graphic design. So I'm very big on like creativity and just spreading your word. So writing, even if you don't think you have a story to tell, I guarantee you do. That was something that really made me more confident in my previous role when I was looking to do the product search and become a product manager. I just started writing, like, I had a portfolio site that I put up. I started writing about projects that I had worked on. Write about anything that interests you. If writing's not your thing, posting on Twitter. You could just be retweeting, sharing insights. Presentations, like this. I had ended up submitting my presentations to speak at conferences and stuff like that just to get my name out there, and then also meet with other people as well. So that's really helpful. Showcasing your work is probably one of the most important things. I'm actually surprised we don't have UX designers here, but it's probably more prevalent when UX designers apply for roles that they have portfolios, but it can be helpful for PMs too. Just writing like cases about, like, say you're looking at a problem or a potential problem that you're looking to solve, going through like your thought process and being able to show that. Also making sure that you're sharing a cohesive message across all platforms. I'm actually guilty of this. I have like every social media account you could probably find. You could Google my name and find a million different things. But when someone looks you up, you want to have just one consistent message. You don't want to be like sharing one thing somewhere else, another thing somewhere else, and they're like, wait, she's a UX designer, but she's also a developer here. Like, which one is it? Because people will be looking at you when like you meet them or you're interviewing, and really you want to put the best face forward for whatever you're doing. My last tip is learn to embrace chaos. So in product, no 2 days are ever the same. I can honestly say that. Like, the past 2 weeks, we just started the new quarter for 2019. I've been doing a lot of planning with my team, like coming up with a roadmap for the quarter. Today, it was focused on long-term strategy and like end of 2019, early 2020. So you're shifting different hats all the time. It was actually really important for me too, because like I mentioned my transition, it was something that was so methodical that I thought out, and within the blink of an eye, everything changed because I couldn't walk. I didn't walk for 2 months. So that wasn't something that I expected to happen, and it was a great test to just be in the product manager role, because it's like, yeah, this is gonna happen. Also, learn to take control of your schedule. This is something that I learned at my last job, where I literally put blocks of time on my calendar, like 2-hour chunks in the morning, just because I know that's like when I'm just wide awake and I can work on things. Just because you will not have time to think, like you won't. I literally got out of a meeting at the end of the day, and there was a group of people, we came here together, and they're like, all right, we're going for food. And I was like, shit, I just had to run and go. So take time, whichever way possible, to think. And then if all else fails, I guarantee your transition will be easier than mine. Yeah, it was really difficult, to say the least. So I guarantee it will go easier. You guys won't have an injury. It's not going to happen. So I wanted to keep this presentation short for questions more than anything else. So I'm definitely all ears. Anything you could possibly think of, feel free to throw it at me and I'll answer. Yeah?
What is, if you could maybe put it into like a small example, concise example
Yeah.
of how you would solve like a problem and how you'd reach out to the various groups that you mentioned connecting with to solve that problem?
Yeah, I guess one example I'm working on right now, so I'm the product owner, product manager of a product called Role IQ at Pluralsight. So it's an assessment product where learners can measure their proficiency in a technology skill. Right now, there's a problem that we have with just engagement in the products. It's tied to another product called Skill IQ, but pretend like you don't know. So we came up with like a hypothesis that we want to test. We're doing basically scientific method trying to run that. There's all these different stakeholders involved. Like there's other product owners. We have over 30 different product teams, I think, at Pluralsight. So product owners, there's data science involved. There's our product analytics team. So it's like scheduling sessions to get everyone in the same room for that. So you're very much like a conductor when you're a product manager. So I don't know if that answers your question. But. Yeah.
Do you have a kind of favorite or top recurring meetings or ceremonies or whatever that have helped you kind of gathering input, distilling it, and pushing it back out? Which is kind of a simplified version of it.
So I just want to make sure I'm hearing it right. Do I have a favorite meeting?
Well, I think not favorite, but like, is there some key recurring things that you have in your kind of tools that you would recommend people really make sure they do as far as kind of data collecting info, distilling it?
Yeah. Great question. So the question was, do I have some key like tasks or items or something that I do to collect information, distill it? So I think one thing that I don't do it actually, I'm like the queen of scheduling back-to-back meetings, which is probably not good because I'm just like, I'm going in, I want to do it all. But maybe scheduling time in between is like a best practice that I can recommend for other people, so that when you get out of the meeting, you can just like distill information down for yourself. I am really stringent on note taking, and when I'm in meetings, Pluralsight actually has this principle or value that's called agreements. So when you're at the end of a meeting, you say like, all right, action items with everyone involved, and you go, okay, next steps. Gonna do this, gonna do that, and everyone in the room needs to sign off on what they're gonna do, which is really helpful for next steps, because things can get there's so many stakeholders, it cannot be clear. So usually when I get out, I'll either type up notes, like I'm writing notes half the time, send them out to the team and everyone that's involved, and usually I'll just immediately schedule follow-up meetings even when I'm in the meeting, because otherwise I'll forget. So.
What techniques do you use for prioritization?
Oh man, Pluralsight's interesting. We don't really have a backlog per se, but the question that we always go through, like when I'm working with the engineers, is what is going to provide the most value right now. That's kind of how I deal with priority levels. I have a note. I was actually talking to one of my coworkers earlier. I have this like Evernote on my computer where I keep like track of all the ideas that come up, because we don't have like backlogs per se, so I just have the running list for me. And then when we have like OKRs, that's how we go through like objectives and key results for the quarter. I'll sit down with the team and have a session, and we talk about what's the most important problems that we're trying to solve for our users right now. So that helps with priority too.
I have a follow-up on that. So with no backlog, I'm assuming that has something that you're doing to review, having queues is bad or something.
Yeah.
Would it delve into that a little bit? And how do you manage? Obviously, there's more. I assume there's more ideas than you're currently working on. So,
oh yeah.
You're not managing that backlog queue. Can you expand on the reason for that and what you do instead?
Yeah. So what I found is that I think it has to do with the development practices that we have at Pluralsight too, where it's very much focused on like what's the highest value that we're giving to our customers right now. So what I have done is I have at the beginning of the quarter, based on our OKRs, I will create user stories or like epics, and then we have this column in there that's like upcoming or like when things are in design, research phase, we're working through that. So the engineers and developers can see what's there, but it's not there just yet. And then when something's ready to go, I'll be like, hey, we're good, we can do that. And then we usually have like a task breakdown and stuff at that point.
And do you use a common like measurement for when you, just another follow-up to the...
Yeah, no problem.
I love the highest value right now.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of sense. What do you use for a methodology or a metric so that you can add up different like you're usually looking, it's usually competing things, right? It's schedules versus business value versus time criticality or whatever it is. But usually those things don't add up, right? Some of them are apples and oranges. So how do you create a common metric there to add up and actually produce some value?
Yeah, that's actually a really great question that I've talked to my tech lead about a few times, because we don't at my last company, we would measure stories and assign points and have velocity and stuff like that, and we don't do that at Pluralsight, at least within my team and the way, like the engineering principles that I've been exposed to so far. It is a little bit difficult because I have some like epics or stories that I will hand the team, and some you look at them and it's like, oh, this will take a day. And then some it's like, oh, this is going to take 3 weeks. This is going to take a month. So a lot of it is communication when I talk to them. At the beginning of this quarter, actually, since I started at the end of September, so we went through the planning and everything. Thanks to Keisha, I took a template that she had that was like a pseudo roadmap for the quarter based on our OKRs, so our objectives and key results. And I sat down with the engineers and we would talk through like what's highest priority, what would actually need to get done before something else. Based on like timelines, so like I have a launch at the end of April, like a huge marketing release, general release. So we know at that point we need something done by then. So talking through some of that, but a lot of it is ambiguous. So.
So given the amount of research that you did on the product role before getting into it, what is something, maybe one thing that you learned on the job that you might have never learned?
Oh man, that's a really great question. I was talking to Ha about that last week actually. Ha is one of the other product managers. She's giving a similar talk. Yeah, that's really good. One thing that was huge for me, I was at, I think I mentioned it, it was about 100 people when I left my last company, and Pluralsight is over 1,000. The amount of stakeholders was just completely insane to me when I started. And so I feel like it takes a little bit longer to do things than it used to at my last company, and just like, there's over probably 30 different product teams, so figuring out where my experience fits in with everyone else's. On the back end, there's a lot of crossover, so that took longer than expected. Also, I was doing learning experience design before, so I was like on the UX side of things. So I knew going in, like, I don't know if so I interviewed with Keisha. So I think one of the questions they asked me was like, what are you gonna have to work on like the most? What's your greatest strength? Like, what's your greatest weakness? And mine was strategy. And the past 3 weeks I've been getting like punched down by my manager about strategy and stuff like that. So learning that sort of stuff has been interesting. Yeah.
Do you mind talking a little bit about your interview experiences? So like
Yeah.
for me, I come from like a science and technical background.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, if I go into one of these interviews, I feel like I won't know like what kind of questions to expect.
Mm-hmm.
Or if, you know, for some marketing jobs, they like to give you case studies or some sort of
Yeah.
question for you. So do you mind talking about like your experience with your interview and like
Mm-hmm.
what you did to prepare for that?
Yeah, so I think I mentioned that this was my first product role that I applied to, so I just have the Pluralsight experience to talk about. Actually, I did some phone screens with some other ones. So, funny thing, my last company was, I mentioned, it was an assessment company, so I was really acutely just aware of different companies' hiring processes. So I was like meta evaluating their hiring process at the same time, which I highly recommend when you're applying to a new job, because it says a lot. They're evaluating you, but you're evaluating them too. So keep that in mind. Are they meeting your values? Are they meeting where you want to go? So I did a phone interview. I did a phone interview at another product place too. Some places sent me a case study after I did the phone interview. Some places do that to just weed out interest beforehand. I ended up, at that point, I actually turned down moving forward in the process because I just knew that I didn't want to work at that specific place. After I did a phone screen with usually HR, I met my current boss over a video screen, which was like terrifying. If you ever meet, his name's Krishna, if you ever meet him, he's literally like the calmest person I've ever met in my life. I was just on a video and like he had no emotion. I didn't know whether I was like doing like I didn't know whether I was like doing well or not. But he asked a lot about like, do you have an example of like interviews that you've done with customers before? What's like, have you ever done a test that just completely failed? What's the craziest thing you've heard from a customer before? How did you test it? Stuff like that. And so I remember I left that interview and I was like, I'm not moving on in that process. That's not happening. And I got a call back and then I went into the office the next week. I met with Keisha first. So I met with, I think, 2 other PMs during the in-person, my UX designer, a tech lead, Shayna. So that was really a great experience. Usually they'll have you meet with different people, like stakeholders that you might have across the entire org. So ask them, have questions ready for them. Usually they'll have cases or questions. Hopefully they split up questions and they ask you that. After that, I met with the head of data products. I had to come back again and meet him. So that was like a case, probably, that I would describe. I went in and he asked me, what's my favorite product? I talked about like the Goodreads app or something like that. Or like meditation apps, because I love that too. And so we walked through, he was like, if you had to improve this product, what would you do? How would you do your research? How would you make decisions? So it was very realistic about like a day-to-day. So I hope that was helpful. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What would you recommend for someone without like any tech background?
I don't have a tech background, so that's
but,
great.
Like not like, you know, more specifically, like I'll make it based on my own experience.
Yeah.
I have been working, like my degree is in stage management, basically product management, but for specific art.
Yeah.
And my experience is all in like experience management for entertainment.
That's
so,
great.
Like, you know, you roll up at a venue and go in and like everything that happens to the event. So I obviously feel that there's a really clear link to this.
Yeah.
Just in terms of gaining some like harder skills and like selling the link, what I guess advice would you have?
Yeah, that's awesome background. Like there is a lot of places, it depends on the company that you're applying to. I've read some ads and they're like, you need to be a technical, like we want technical PMs, you need to have an engineering background. You're probably going to want to look for, it depends on what you're looking for, but like a company that might want a business background. One reason I actually got hired, my boss actually told me, was my experience working cross-functionally. And like, I worked in SaaS. My first job, I was service desk. I worked with customer success and stuff like that. So exactly what you're describing with event management, you have all of that collaborative and stakeholder involvement, and managing projects. So like play up the timelines, project management, stuff like that. You'll be able to say like when things have gone wrong, because events always go wrong. Like I was a dancer for 14 years growing up. It's like things go wrong, I know. So I think playing up that sort of stuff will definitely help. You can use Pluralsight to learn technology skills. Yeah. No, seriously, we could probably get you a free trial. That sort of stuff. I think what probably might be easier, depending on your background, is like analytics and stuff like that. And even just like exposure to the scientific method of like, how do I form a hypothesis and test that? Because you don't necessarily need engineering background to do that, but it goes a long way. So, and user experience too is awesome. So. Yeah.
how much methodology does Pluralsight provide to their individual PMs to create consistency versus allowing the individual PM to run their own show as far as the process of collecting and distilling it and communicating it back up?
Yeah, I laughed at first when you asked that because I looked over at Keisha's face and she's like, yeah. It's funny because we're onboarding a new PM right now, and I saw like an onboarding guide that the team had made, and it went over some of the standards, and I was like, I did not get this at all. I was like in a room with my cat hanging out. But we operate on a directed discovery process that was created by Nate Walkingshaw. There's a great book called Product Leadership that I read before starting, and we really use that as like a main methodology for user experience research and stuff like that. So from that perspective, we all follow that sort of methodology where we do discovery research together, or use like the same discovery research. Then we do like prototype testing. We do customer confirmation testing, so that's looking at metrics and stuff like that. But it really is kind of free for all, to say the least, which I think we mentioned we probably have like 30 product teams at this point, so it does get a little all over the place. There's experiences touching other experiences. There's teams that are working on the same things, and they're not talking to each other. So it can get a little bit difficult. But one thing we're actually working on now is a project I'm working on is Unified Learner Experience. So that's going to be a new initiative about making things cohesive and experience cohesive for our learners. So we are also looking at a data-driven directed discovery process. So my team is actually one of the first teams that's doing an experiment with that. So going through the process of like creating a hypothesis. What are the metrics you're looking to measure? How do you know if you've like accomplished this or not? So I think they're trying to standardize in those ways, but it's still very open. So product leadership.
What does a team composition look like?
Yeah, so it's me and my UX designer. We're focused on kind of like the product question of like, why are things important? What problems are we trying to solve? I have 6 developers on the team, I think. Shayna left me. She's over there. She's one of my, she just became a tech lead. So yeah, so it's us. And then there's other product teams. I think there's like 5 other ones in Boston. We're data products. That's kind of the hub of Pluralsight that's here. And then the headquarters is in Utah, and they have all the other product teams there.
And multiple, sorry to
No, it's fine.
snipe another question, follow-up question, but are there multiple, sounds like there are multiple product teams working on the same product?
Not the same product per se. Similar products. There's some places where like experiences overlap. So like Role IQ is my product. There is a Skill IQ product, and Skill IQ feeds into Role IQ. So any like changes that they make to Skill IQ, my product will inherit that. And everything's based off of Keisha's product, which is, so there's lots of like interdependencies within kind of the ecosystem, so.
How do you manage like, or what you've observed of like being like a technical PM or an engineer going into a PM role or a designer going to a PM role? How do you then work with, if you're that tech, I'll just go with the engineers. If you go from engineering to a PM, how do you then work with your engineers without stepping on their toes or like butting heads? Because in those situations you have just as much knowledge as them.
Yeah.
So how do you, but different roles?
Yeah. I'll answer this from a different perspective because I came from UX and now I work with Kira, my UX designer. It is a blessing and a curse. One reason why I wanted to switch out of UX is because I didn't want to be knee deep in every single interaction and thinking like I am a perfectionist to the extreme, and I didn't want to be hyper focused on like user flows and stuff like that. It's stuff that I think about, but I want it to be meta and like one level out. It's great because like when you're brainstorming and talking and collaborating, you're speaking the same language. You understand the thought processes. Like when I was interviewing with Kira, it's like we were on the same level. We're speaking the same language. It can be hard sometimes because there's things that I want to do or I want to happen. I used to design onboarding flows within software. So like we have a meeting tomorrow because I'm like, I want to create, there's a team that creates onboarding flows and like user guides. I was like, I want to do this. I think this is important. So sometimes you have to sell to, like I have to sell to Kira a lot about why something's important because she's going to have an opinion about something. I feel like for engineering, it might be probably more difficult. I think it will be a benefit to you about, I don't know, it could be a benefit or like a curse about how you're building things. I wish sometimes that I had the technical background to challenge my engineers sometimes when they're like, that's too hard. I'm like, really, is it? We just got a co-op like last week named Gino. He's like awesome. And like the first day he was with our team, we came out of like an interview and he's like, oh, we can do this. And I was like, but they said it was really hard. And he's like, no, it's really easy. And I was like, thank you for being here. So I think that like those things wouldn't happen. You can call BS on them. I think that in any like PM is a leadership role, through and through. So it's going to be a lot of how do you get everyone behind you? How do you sell the importance of something? The why, I feel like, is going to be, because engineering is and even UX is focused on like how are we going to build this? What are the specific things? But it's going to be a switch between why are we doing this? Why is this important? Why is this going to drive value? So.
For 30 product groups, who does it fall on to? I'm presuming with all of these products going on, there's some flow of the executive management what's going on with the company.
Yep.
Can you take us through any of your responsibilities around that and kind of how you've seen that execute well or not well?
Interesting question. Yeah. So it depends. So I joined at an interesting time. My product was the flagship product for Pluralsight Live, which was our biggest user conference. So it's like I just went to general release on Monday. We were in a beta period. So we're very much in the spotlight with everything. So I frequently get messages from our head of product, our head of experience, seeing like, where are things going? How are things going? This is great. We need to move to GR for this. We need to do that. So the communication flow is very much there. I meet frequently with my VP of product. And one thing that was crazy when I started, my company before this, because it was so small, there was one VP of product, right? Now I think there's like 5, which was very interesting. So we have one in Boston. We have a senior VP of data products. I meet with him monthly to kind of just speak about initiatives that we're working on. What's our goals? How are we getting there? How are we moving to release? What's the sales enablement for the product? Stuff like that. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that's
okay.
great.
Cool. I love it. Keep it coming. Yeah. Anyone? Yeah.
What do you do when something fails? Like, product launch doesn't go well, numbers go down, etc.
Yeah. No, that's a great question. I think I mentioned I'm a perfectionist, so failing is not something I like to do, but I've learned to embrace. I actually got really good at saying I don't know to things. We didn't hit one of our goals last quarter. we did ones which was like going to general release. We didn't get one about like learner engagement, so that was not ideal, but you're gonna fail as a product manager. There's gonna be like, I guarantee that the test I run on skill inference is gonna fail. I know it's gonna fail. I know that I'm not gonna hit 2 of my OKRs this quarter because I made them insane, because I made them really like just difficult to attain, because I wanted to see where we were at and push ourselves and get that benchmark at where we are now. So I think learning to embrace the failure, and being able to adapt and see like, what are you looking to measure or like even test something on, and then see why it failed. That might like bring up more questions for you and digging deeper there. Cool.
Yeah. So it sounds like you operate in like a waterfall approach to product management.
No.
Oh, okay. Because you said you want to release like later on. Are you releasing internally and then just kind of bulking it all together and releasing at once? How does that?
No. We have continuous releases all the
Okay.
time. So when I mentioned we went to general release, my product was in a beta period.
Gotcha.
Before that, we had alpha, so we did released it internally to like 2,000 people. The open beta, we had a closed beta first, where we were doing a lot of hand holding. I had to email back and forth and do like product demos and stuff. Switched to an open beta, people could opt in through a banner. We just removed that so that now they just get access. So that's what I mean by release.
Gotcha.
And then in April, we're going to have an official marketing release, where we have, like, I'm on enterprise SKUs. My product's on enterprise right now. We're going to be opening up to professional SKUs too. So that's like the big splash, and help articles and stuff like that. So cool.
Yeah.